Welcome to part 9, I think it is, of they love the antichrist because they love not the truth. And I want to jump on into this footage. You know, some of this is about natural disasters and whatnot like that. And I want y'all to be aware of these things are absolutely occurring.
Also quaked and were shaken because he was angry.
That was a pretty good sized earthquake there. 6.6 quake. Pay attention to the captions.
Getting to survivors is difficult. A magnitude 6.8 earthquake shook southwestern China on Monday. Remote villages are among the worst affected. Heavy rains have also challenged rescue efforts, creating landslides and floods.
The firefighters helped us today. We had 6 people on the boat, one of whom is an old woman. When we got off, a firefighter put her on his back and carried her to safety. Without them, we wouldn't have been able to leave, as there were quite a few aftershocks.
Firemen and the army have been battling the tough terrain for days.
We evacuated over 30 people in 4 hours. It took us 20 minutes to get the boat from the wharf to the village every time. We evacuated 3 elderly people, the oldest being 90 years old. It's always challenging to get them out, so we use stretchers to carry them down from the village.
Rescue efforts continue in the more built-up areas too. People have been buried alive under the rubble for days. Weather warnings remain in place. The earthquake is the strongest to hit Sichuan province in years. Strict COVID lockdowns and daily testing rules are also hampering operations amid a resurgence of the virus. Rescuers must undergo daily testing, and no one from outside the province can enter. People have also been told to stay at home in the capital Chengdu, where aftershocks are still being felt.
At least 3 people are dead after a magnitude 7.6 quake hit the island nation of Papua New Guinea. The 3 reported dead were victims of a landslide resulting from the quake. Officials from the town where the landslide happened said it will take some time to fully assess the damage.
You see that road?
The quake hit a remote part of the country, but the effects could be felt across the nation. Several people have been injured, and there is damage to some infrastructure, according to government officials.
Look at that road. No, that's completely normal to drive on roads like that. Damage to infrastructure. This chopper felt like dancing. Look what a mess. Clean up on all sides.
Isaiah
Clean up on
24,
all
19
aisles.
through 21.
Clean up on all aisles.
Sacramento has burned miles and miles of land, more than 46,000 acres in all, and it is only 10% contained. Despite lower temperatures over the weekend, crews are still struggling to bring the fire under control. And as Mark Strassman shows us, it is just one of more than a dozen large fires in the American West.
Parts of Northern California look apocalyptic. Dark columns of smoke reaching thousands of feet in the air. It's the mosquito fire burning nearly out of control.
Firefighters are working very hard. They've been fighting a lot of different fires
started that one with a cigarette.
all night. They're working 24-hour shifts.
Rough terrain's only one challenge among many. Extreme heat and dry conditions over the past week have spread flames faster and hotter. At risk, firefighting crews and more than 11,000 evacuees.
We don't know if we even have a home.
A rare rainy weekend in Southern California gave fire crews an unexpected weapon in their battle with the Fairview fire. It's now more than 40% contained. In Washington state, the Bolt Creek fire has already destroyed more than 7,500 acres since sparking Saturday morning. And in Oregon, the Cedar Creek fire exploded. More than 85,000 acres blackened, forcing evacuations and leaving roughly 25,000 people without power. Back in California, evacuee Donald Garner slept in his car, hoping for a breakthrough.
About all we can do is just hope and pray that everything goes okay for everybody.
Firefighters facing another hairy week agree.
Villagers wading waist-deep through submerged farmland in flood-ravaged Mahir, Pakistan. After months of heavy monsoon rains, at least 1,396 people have been killed and millions more have been left homeless. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has toured some of the worst affected areas on his two-day visit of the country. He described the disaster as climate carnage.
I've seen many humanitarian disasters in the world, but I have never seen climate carnage on this scale.
They're
I
pushing
have
for that
simply no
climate
words to describe
deal to be
what I've
passed,
seen
aren't they?
today. A flooded area that is 3 times the total area of my own country, Portugal.
Antonio Guterres has made his position clear. Climate change caused the floods in Pakistan, a disaster forced upon poor countries by rich ones. So it is time to settle the bill. The government and millions of people affected by floods hope his visit helps loosen Western purse strings.
What is your message to the people who are anchored firmly in the worst part of the crisis?
My message is that the world has a responsibility to support them, that the world must help Pakistan at the present moment for Pakistan to be able to rescue all the people in those dramatic circumstances.
The UN delegation has heard first-hand accounts from survivors and rescue teams of tragedy, suffering, and growing desperation.
The rains and the raging rivers may have stopped for now, but that does not mean that all the danger is gone. What the Pakistani government is trying to showcase here in this place where people have been seeking refuge, they want to illustrate to the UN Secretary General that despite the fact that much of the dramatic weather is over, there still remain, for the people that are living in or near the flood zones, there still remain immediate threats to their lives.
Nowhere more so than in Sindh province, where earlier this week there was a forced breach of the country's largest freshwater lake. Settlements sacrificed to save cities. And remote villages is where people need the most help.
I think people are slow to react because the problem is so big that it seems unapproachable. And the first thing is to just take a first step and get your team here, get your boots on the ground.
Volunteers say the government must cut through red tape.
If these visas are not, the process is not sped up fast enough, then it's gonna end up with a lot of people left with no help or no support, no kind of relief, no kind of rehabilitation.
International aid is arriving, but it quickly becomes clear that it is still not enough. Medics tell us people are suffering from malaria, waterborne illnesses, serious infections that started as small wounds. They admit people need more help than they are able to give.
Romans 1:18.
These are people. Before you start saying, oh, well, it's not our place. These are people. What if that was you and your family out there? Think about that. It is our place to pray for these people that they get the help that they need. If we do not have the means in which to help them, we still can bear them up to the Father. Some of those may very well be His children. You don't know. If you're not feeling that in your heart and feeling any kind of burden for these people, then clearly you are not His. And you need to do something about that.
Gathering of the country's parliament, the Supreme People's Assembly. To customary applause, he announced the North's status as a nuclear-armed power would now be enshrined in law.
Legislating nuclear weapons policy draws an irreversible line so that there can be no bargaining over our nuclear weapons.
It officially closes the door on attempts brokered by the previous Liberal administration in South Korea to get the North to give up its nuclear weapons through summit diplomacy. And comes amid fears the North is preparing to conduct its first nuclear test since 2017. Concerns that were aired at a trilateral security meeting earlier this week between the US and its allies, South Korea and Japan.
North Korea is continuing or even accelerating its nuclear and missile activities.
South Korea's ruling party has condemned the North's declaration as a threat to the South and the international community, accusing Pyongyang of causing its own isolation and resulting sanctions, and Kim Jong-un of using nuclear threats to protect his regime. Once again, North Korea seems to be showing the more it feels threatened by what it perceives as a hostile world, the more determined it is to hold on to its nuclear arsenal.
Ukrainians are fighting smarter by using drones that can destroy tanks, and their strategy is paying off. Russian forces pulled back in the face of a fierce counterattack.
Ukraine's success is due in part to military aid sent by the West and technology given by private donors. Chuck Holton brings us the story from the front lines.
Ukrainians hope their military's counteroffensive in the east could signal a turning point in the war. The ongoing operation has been so successful, the Ukrainian army has retaken more ground in 5 days than the Russians captured in the past 5 months.
This operation was possible because of the resolve of the armed forces, because our commanders from the president to every commander in the battlefield are so devoted to the victory.
The city of Kharkiv has endured almost daily rocket attacks since April. On Sunday, a Russian missile strike took out the power grid, causing the city to go dark. It once held 1 million people, but is now relatively empty, and those who stayed live in constant fear of death from a Russian missile. Now, nearby villages feel hopeful as Ukrainian troops push the invaders out. Up until now, Russia has held a huge advantage in tanks and artillery, but the Ukrainians have figured out how to turn off-the-shelf technology into a force multiplier, making a commercial drone nearly equal to a Russian tank in combat power.
One of our soldiers with the technology, it's stronger than maybe 10 or 20 soldiers from Russia.
If you are unfamiliar with warfare, you might say that there was heavy fighting going on in this area where we are, in a place called Pisky, in the southern part of Donetsk province. And though there have been artillery barrages going near constantly for the several hours that we've been here now, it doesn't necessarily qualify as a pitched battle. That's because the Russians are just randomly firing artillery pretty much all day long, all night long. They have a near limitless supply of that, but they're not really making any gains, and that's because the Ukrainians are fighting smarter, and in so doing, they can hold off the Russians, even though the Russians outnumber them about 50-1. A Russian tank costs about $4.5 million to build, while an off-the-shelf drone runs a little over $1,000. Since these tiny drones are responsible for destroying hundreds of tanks, that makes them priceless for these Ukrainian airborne troopers.
Rather than fight the Russian
Yeah,
tanks
fight
head-to-head,
smarter,
we use the drones
not
to spot
harder.
the enemy positions, then pass that information on to our long-range artillery to be destroyed. The only thing we need is more ammo. If we had enough ammunition, the enemy wouldn't stand a chance.
You know, I do
absolutely
not
sure
condone
that we will
violence of
win,
any kind, though.
but
Let me
it's,
state that.
Maybe not in this month.
I do not condone violence of any kind. But you know, they giving that old bear a run for his money, ain't they? Yeah, this is kind of crazy. But hey, don't forget, Jesus said, I come not to bring peace, but a sword. So, here we go. We're in that time frame, are we not? We are in that time frame. And I will see you in the next part with more footage. I really hope that these clips are opening your eyes to what is going on around the world. I don't actually watch much media, but when the Lord sends me to these watchmen to watch a particular program, I do watch it. And it confirms things the Lord Himself has told me and shown me. And that's all the purpose of it anyway, for me. But as I watch it and the Lord says share it, I share it because it is intended to wake people up from their slumber and show them we are in the last days. Wake up, bride of Christ, because it's almost home time. I'll see you in the next part.